Hello and welcome to Hallelujah Monkeys for August 21st. My name is Dillon Flynn.
My name is Trevor Ickrath.
It's Eclipse fever, Trevor.
I know, yeah. Or how much of it are you going to be able to see by you? I think we're only going to get about like 40% of it.
So I'm in the path of the full totality eclipse, and I'm going to have a good long look at it, I guess. But here's the thing. So 6 million people are going to be funneling into my area to come see this thing.
Okay.
And I can walk outside of my door and do it, and I feel like there's a good chance that I'm going to forget to. Like, I don't care at all.
You know, I recently found out that, like, everybody says it's, like, really bad to look at an eclipse, right?
Yeah, you're supposed to wear special glasses.
Yeah, apparently, like, it's no worse than looking at the sun at any other time. So, like, you could still look at it.
Look at it like you would look at a piece of somebody's anatomy, but without you wanting them to know or whatever.
Sure, yeah, okay.
But here's the thing, Trevor. I think the reason, honestly, why I don't really care about the total eclipse is that I associate the image of a total eclipse with, like, really bad movie posters and album covers and stuff. It's just been co-opted by bad art. And so I think it looks corny. Like, I think the sun is like trying a little too hard when it does a total eclipse.
Well, I can't hear total eclipse without finishing it in my head as of the heart.
Right, and neither can a karaoke night, apparently.
No.
Any karaoke night in America, apparently.
Oh, that would be pretty cool, though, going to a karaoke night during the eclipse and doing that song.
Oh, I wonder how many people have that idea and how many... Because here's the thing that you forget about that song. It takes a long time to get to that chorus.
It does,
takes
yeah.
a very
really does.
long time.
Got a long build up. Don't do Hotel California either.
Trevor, let's get into the news.
It's all good news now.
It's a new single release, and so, of course, we have a steady trickle of new Gorillaz remixes.
The coolest of which I think has been the K-Tronada mix.
I had some high hope for this, Trevor, because the Gorillaz Instagram, or I think maybe Noodle's Instagram account, like Jamie Hewlett bothered to draw her hanging out with K-Tronada.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So I was like, oh, maybe this is like going to be a little something special.
Something special.
I don't think that it was. I don't think that it was special at all.
It was okay. It was pleasant.
I guess so. So the kind of the concept of it, I guess, is that like Pevin's vocals are pushed way into the background.
Well, it's not even that his vocals are pushed way into the background. I think it's just his backing vocals for a while, isn't it?
That's true. Yeah, he's looping a lot of his kind of like chorus ad libs, but they're background in the mix.
Yeah, and I actually like that part. I don't really feel it when his voice comes to the front of the mix again.
It's sort of like very much built around this kind of live drum sound. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I guess I just don't understand electronic music anymore. Like it goes through so many permutations, and I just don't quite get the hook of this one for me.
I mean, I'll probably never listen to it again, but it was fine.
Hey, I'll never listen to it again, but it was fine. That's the pull quote for the K-Tronada remix from Trevor Ickrath.
You could just use that one for free.
So apparently Damon's on vacation right now.
Yeah, slacking on his Gorillaz duties.
I mean, he did that, he had that Outside Lands show. I guess he's got a little bit of a gap. Why not pop over to Chile?
Resting on his laurels. I remember back in the day, you know what Damon did instead of taking a vacation? He made albums on his iPad. There
was no time wasted on a Gorillaz tour back in the day.
No.
But apparently he met up with some fans in Chile. There's a big following for Gorillaz in South America. And he decided to start chatting Gorillaz and future Gorillaz plans. And he let slip, Trevor, that he hopes, at least, to release a live Gorillaz album or perhaps a documentary about the Humans tour at some point, maybe towards the end of the phase.
That would be really cool. What do you think the live album would be? Do you think it would be the Printworks show? Do you think it would be the Demon Days set?
I like to think that it would be a cobbled together version of Humans from like the best of the tour.
Yeah. What kind of live albums do you prefer? Because there are those two different kinds. There's the cobbled together, tour highlights, and then there's the we want you to listen to this one single performance all the way through.
I mean, I think the latter maybe has more potential to be like an enduring classic, but
right.
It's a much longer shot. Like, if that doesn't happen very often. And More often, you're kind of like, oh, well, this version of this song's really cool on this, and this version of this song kind of sucks on this. And so I think for consistency's sake, I prefer it when they curate it, just like look at the whole tour and try to give you the best of each track.
I lean the other way. I like the single performances. I think there's just something more special about that.
Like the Cheap Trick Budokai album, that's good.
Yeah, or like Live at Leeds.
Yeah, that's sure. But I mean, for every one of those enduring classics, there's, 100 forgettable non-releases.
Right, but can you name any like classic cobbled together ones?
Yeah, sure. The Blink-182 one where they sing that song about blowjobs.
I'll give you that. Speaking of live shows, though, something happened at a Kid Koala one recently, right?
Apparently, in a Portland show recently, Trevor, he teased that Lonely Man is coming.
Yeah. Gorillaz fandom, you're welcome.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. Do you think it's our Twitter campaign?
I have no doubt. The Hallelujah Monkeys army fan base, I knew they could do it, and they have.
If you're not aware, around shortly after the Gorillaz album, Dan the Automator had a completed solo album called Omakase, and it was scrapped because of some label bullshit, and it's never seen the light of day. And we are aware of this song from it called Lonely Man, which featured Damon Albarn and Mos Def together before Phase 3, because of Kid Koala doing a sort of a version of it live, which is called The Routine or Gorillaz Routine. And apparently it's going to see the light of day, Trevor. Now, here's my proposal of how this happened. Our listeners started bothering Dan and Koala about...
Did anybody tweet at them?
Yeah, like 8 or 9 people did.
Sweet, cool. All right, way to go, guys.
Kid Koala, I think, even responded to 1 or 2 of them. But anyway, and then on top of that, Koala and Dan have been working together because they both worked on the Baby Driver soundtrack together.
Right, yeah, that is correct, yeah.
So they did some press for that. So maybe while they were hanging out, like Kid says to Dan, hey, people are asking about Omakase again. And Dan's like, oh, maybe we should put it up on SoundCloud or something. That's my theory.
Can you imagine? What do you think the chances are?
I'll put it at 40%.
Okay, that's fair. The Eclipse number.
So 40%, you're welcome, Gorillaz fan.
Anything else in the news?
No, I don't think so. I will say, though, that I'm not angry at Damon Albarn for taking a little break on the tour and enjoying some fun in the sun. But what I'd like him to be working on during this tour, Trevor, is the Good, the Bad, and the Queen Brexit album. I'd like him to be writing those songs.
I can't wait for that project.
That should be amazing.
Yeah, but first let's talk about more Gorillaz stuff and get into take a seat at the round table.
Let's do it.
Help me understand why we have African American males in the context of New York at the Apollo, no doubt, singing "I Need a Gun" to keep me from harm.
No, it doesn't. It's to keep myself among. Keep myself among the poor people who are burning in the sun.
It says harm.
No, that's not the lyric.
See, then that's something different.
That's not the lyric at all. It says, I need a gun to keep myself...
All right, Dillon, so I know this is a little unorthodox, but I want to begin our roundtable discussion with a discussion question.
The sound happened. It happened.
How relieved are you that you and I never have to discuss at length the Gorillaz cartoon characters on this podcast ever again?
You know what? Famous last words, Trevor, because there's some weird bullshit Phase 4 lore happening around the strobe light video right now.
We won't talk about that yet. It's been interesting, like listening to like noticing the progression of this podcast, because it's kind of mirroring like my initial experience with Gorillaz, where I got really into it. And then I decided to take a closer look at the lore and got totally burnt out on it.
You know what? All I'm saying is just you wait and see. Like tomorrow, they're going to drop a 4-hour Murdoch's Pirate Radio, and then they're going to announce Rise of the Ogre Part 2, documenting Phase 3 and 4. No, but legit, I hope that we're done with the Gorillaz characters until the TV show. Then I'm welcome them back into my life.
Yeah. Friendship with Jamie Hewlett over. Damon Albarn, come back over here.
Or perhaps Ceri Levy. Perhaps Ceri Levy is really...
Yeah, because we're talking about Bananaz, his film documentary on the band.
The amazing 2008 documentary, which is the living document of the inception of the Gorillaz project and the behind the scenes events of Phase 1 and Phase 2. Trevor, is this the second time you've seen Bananaz, or have you seen it several times over the years?
I think this might be the third time I've seen Bananaz. I actually, I waited a while to check this out, though. I actually didn't watch for the first time until 2014, maybe.
Wow. So fairly recent. What was it like going back this time, Trevor?
It wasn't, as like spellbinding as it was originally, but it's always fun to take a closer look into the embryonic stages of Gorillaz and, how they would progress to, I guess, what would be the height of their popularity with Phase 2.
This is probably the fourth or fifth time I've seen Bananaz, and I'd seen it within since starting this podcast, I'd already watched it once, so this is me going back to it second time recently, and I think that I might be promoting it to like a sick day standard movie for myself. I find this movie kind of like wall to wall, really engaging, funny, and great to watch. I loved it going back even this soon after my last viewing.
I think it is surprisingly rewatchable for a music documentary, yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's smart that it's done mise en scène, that there's not a lot of bookending, or they didn't hire some BBC presenter to come in and say, and now Damon and Jamie are at the music video awards or whatever.
No, it's very intimate.
Yeah.
Like you can tell that it's from inside the band.
The edit's really smart too. The edit is very smart in that it like gives you just as much establishment context as you kind of need to move forward.
And it even flows through little arcs too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's very intelligently put together and like you said, extremely intimate. The kind of intimacy you get, I guess, when the filmmaker documenting the project is like a friend of both of the collaborators.
So this is kind of the anti-Charts of Darkness for you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And we even get a little bit of that shoot. We'll get to it. But they do show us a little bit of the Charts of Darkness shoot. If you've not tracked down Bananaz, like, go buy that DVD. And you know what? We're not really going to have time today, Trevor, to get into the supplemental materials of Bananaz.
Right.
But I'm putting a flag in that right now, because there's basically another Bananaz worth of bonus features.
A little bit, right? Some of them are pretty long.
And some of them are really amazing. So I'm just going to say down the road, expect, Welcome Back to Bananaz, special feature edition episode, because that stuff is definitely worth a look.
We'll reach for that DVD again on a rainy day.
Yes. That happens before our episode about Marky Smith. But this one's going to be amazing. We've got so much to talk about, Trevor. Let's get into it. Let's start talking about this movie, huh?
Let's start talking about Bananaz. I love the way this film opens, okay? You get Jamie Hewlett laid out in the back of a car.
Super hungover.
Driving through a cemetery while Hip Albatross plays in the background.
Yeah,
and then him and Damon immediately start bickering like a married couple.
They are such an old married couple, like through this whole movie.
If you're a Gorillaz fan who doesn't like ship Damon and Jamie, have you seen Bananaz?
Good question. Because boy, that dynamic, there's so much. There's everything.
There's a lot here, yeah.
Yeah, the dynamic. And so it all comes down to that Jamie was kind of like out super late drinking and drugging. And Damon went to bed early because he's a good boy, and so they're bickering about it. It's very cute, and
we've already got the like Tootie and Murdoch dynamic,
and that little like groan that Damon does in Hip Albatross is like this perfect kind of sonic background for Jamie Hewlett's hangover.
It's really good, yeah. The guitar, yeah, everything about this opening scene is perfect. I love it.
And then the cold open continues to show us Damon and Jamie on the radio having that kind of like really boring boilerplate conversation about why they decided to start the cartoon band.
They say American Idol's a sickness and they need to find a cure for that.
Can you imagine how many versions of that conversation do you think Ceri Levy had filmed by the end of making this documentary?
I can't imagine. But I think something interesting, I believe Damon Albarn says he knows the guy who started American Idol. Does that technically mean Simon Cowell?
It could mean. It might be some other producer dude behind the scenes, but I wrote down the quote because it's really funny. He goes, I know the guy who invented American Idol. He's got so much money, and all it's given him is a slight weight problem, very orange skin, and really bad leather trousers.
And how ironic that 17 years later, Gorillaz would still be battling with somebody with a slight weight problem and very orange skin, right?
I know. It's very interesting, right?
Very interesting.
Do you think that Donald Trump owns some lederhosen? I mean, he's sort of a Nazi sympathizer, so it would make sense.
Apparently he gets into like really freaky stuff in Russia, too.
I know, right? Leather. He probably has like a scary gimp mask for all I know.
Wouldn't surprise me.
And then we have the opening titles, which is M1A1 kind of overshots of different videos from Gorillaz and occasional little sound bites from Damon and Jamie.
They make you listen to M1A1 a lot in this movie.
I think M1A1 gets 3 plays, Punk gets 2. So Ceri clearly gravitates towards certain tunes, for sure. Mm-hmm. Then we get into like the first big set piece of the movie, Trevor, which is Jamie kind of giving Ceri a tour of the early Gorillaz artwork.
Right. There's some interesting stuff here that, like, if you blink, you'll miss it.
Absolutely.
Like, the ghost rapper initially looked exactly like Russell.
Crazy, right? And then he famously says they've got a gorilla in the band who plays the bongos. So that was a thing happening at that point.
Do you think if that character had stuck, the gorilla would have been the one killed off in the El Mañana video?
Oh, that's a good point. And they did it like super serious, like a single tear rolled down its face. And then the fandom is like, what happened to Chim Chim?
So then he flips to that photo of Russell showing off the white power tattoo, and they immediately cut away from it.
I know, it's like it's a big conspiracy to hide the Peckerwood affiliation.
And of course, we got a little shout out to Paula Cracker in there.
Got a little Paula Cracker shout out.
Well, Paula Cracker shout out.
What about, I want to talk about, I have a lot of notes about this one shot where he goes, here's the first ever picture of Gorillaz. It's a 3-piece, and Trevor, they look so douchey. They look so douchey. I paused it and I just frantically took notes.
I particularly remember how douchey 2D looks here.
They all look really douchey. Okay, so it's not like a high-res scan, okay? Because, like, I think Ceri was filming... I don't think he was filming digital. I think he was on some kind of, like, low-grain film or something. But you can still make it out. So it's all... I believe everybody is white, even though there is, like, a proto-Russell. I believe he's supposed to be a white dude.
He's a little smaller, too, isn't he?
He is. So the front man, the 2D character, he's wearing a long sleeve shirt underneath a short sleeve shirt, which is that was such a late 90s thing that happened. His short sleeve shirt has like the Atari logo on it, and it says Atari Safari. And he's wearing a massive belt buckle, and his haircut is like, it's raw douche. It's so bad. And then you got your proto Russell again with the long sleeve shirt underneath the short sleeve.
It was a look they were going for, an established aesthetic.
Maybe that was in the original conversation. Like, we got to take down this manufactured pop, and we got to wear 2 t-shirts while we do it. Anyway, Russell's has like an assault rifle on it, and it says Kingpin. And then there's, Trevor, there's Proto Murdoch. So Proto Murdoch has like a total baby face. He looks like he could be the bad boy in NSYNC for sure. He's wearing like a Quaker hat, like the Quaker oatmeal guy wears.
Yeah.
And he's shirtless and he has suspenders on. I just want to punch all 3 of them right in their dumb faces.
And there's the bongo playing gorilla, right?
And then there's the bongo playing gorilla, but not in that picture. That was after. It shows that after.
Okay.
At this point, it was a 3-piece with just douchey white dudes in it.
Yeah.
But there's a really cute moment at the end of this section, Trevor, where Jamie is describing 2D, and he goes, he's also one of these people who, no matter how many times you try to tell him, it doesn't really register. And then, like, Damon's sitting next to him on the couch and looking at something else.
It's so good. It's so good.
And so Jamie starts pointing at Damon so the camera can see that he's doing it. He's like, in one ear, out the other. He's pointing at him. Damon has no idea.
It's so good. I love that. Like, there's some interesting stuff here about early Murdoch. First of all, listening to Jamie do it's his band is like so cute.
Yeah, it sounds like he's showing you this band that he just it is, but it sounds like he's a 10-year-old showing you a band that he just drew.
Pure Jamie Hewlett. And then he gives some early Murdoch lore. He says that he's jealous about not being good looking enough to be the lead singer.
Right? Yes.
And then he also says that 2D looks up to Murdoch, and he says he looks to Murdoch like his savior, like his big brother. So interesting stuff that really wouldn't get developed there.
The adorability of Jamie's sort of breathless retelling of early Gorillaz lore is really helped by the fact that he sounds so young in this footage, Trevor.
Yeah, they both do.
His voice sounds so much higher. It's very cute. It's very adorable. And then this is where we get Damon attempting to flip the cigarette into his mouth, attempt number 1.
Right. This is what becomes kind of the almost the driving arc of the entire movie.
I mean, it's certainly a framing device, and perhaps it has an even deeper meaning. But I don't know where that is. That might actually be in their apartment together, actually.
God, can you imagine those early days of them living together?
I mean, I feel like you get a few shots of it in this movie, and it looks like it looks like it could be a room in Kong Studios, kind of. It's like an insane dump of art and clutter, for sure.
You gotta wonder now how much of the rooms in Kong Studios Jamie actually based on their own living space.
Dude, early on in this movie, it's like back to back to back, like big, memorable set pieces, because we go straight into the recording of Punk after this.
Right, but before we go there, we actually get this little sound clip from Jamie where he's already really salty about having to do like what he describes as the dumpy work.
Oh,
while Damon gets to go like record songs, and everybody's like, "Oh, look what he's doing." It's like really interesting that the seed of this was already like so planted in these early stages.
Well, that is one of the unfair things, right? Is that like Damon can go with his iPad and write a little tune, and everybody's like, "Good job," but Jamie's got to like slave over an animator's table for hours and hours.
Yeah, just in a dark little room. It's interesting. I mean, like you take a look at those two sides, and how could something like not develop between them? You know?
True. If nothing else, motion capture is at least like the great equalizer of this partnership of allowing Jamie to do much more immediate things.
Definitely, yeah, a little bit. But then we get to the Punk recording scene. So good. Like, this is magical.
So good.
Yeah, you get to see Damon kind of build the song from like the ground up, recording the bass line, doing some of the claps, and then he gets into the vocal booth to do that like opening groan and like the first verse.
Yeah, you get to see the actual takes that are used for those ad-libs. It's really fun to watch them come out of his mouth in real time.
It's surreal to watch them come out of his mouth in real time, I think. Like, seeing this was like watching somebody like write the Bible.
It's interesting. He does like a special face when he's singing the take, and it almost looks like part of his process is that he has to feel like a cool, young, sexy rock star. Like he's making a little bit. He's making a cool, sexy rock star face. We also, Trevor, get to see a shot of Jason Cox on the soundboard and Tom Gerling up on the stacks. The two men who really can't be undersold how much credit they deserve for the self-titled. Cool to see those two, and especially funny to see because you see Jason Cox like throughout the documentary, Trevor, and except for one moment, he's always very stone-faced.
He's studious looking.
Yes, and he's like kind of deadpan, you know?
Yeah.
But you get I love that one shot, Trevor, when Damon goes over to the oscillator to make the noises in Punk, right? And he's like looking over his shoulder at Jason, kind of going like, "Oh yeah, this is the shit. Look what I'm doing here. This is great."
I love when he keeps going, "It sounds fucking wicked."
Yeah, he loves it. He loves the bass track. At one point, he's like walking around the studio with an airsoft pistol.
That is great. Shooting it in time with the claps. Really good.
He looks truly unhinged. It's very funny.
And this is also where we got like, confirmed that it's him who thinks you always have to have a nasty track on your album. Yeah,
definitely. You hear him espouse this philosophy. You also get to see him hump an electric guitar in service of finding weird noises to put during the second verse of Punk.
That's also a really cool shot. Yeah.
That's great, and Dan Nakamura shows up, and Junior Dan, you see him too, and then Damon says, "What we've got here is an LA hip hop producer, an old school Jamaican dub bassist, and a twat from Leytonstone."
That's the beauty of Gorillaz. It's great. They also said Junior Dan kind of just wandered into the studio, right?
Yeah, I wonder how that worked out. He didn't have Studio 13 at this point. I don't know what that space is that he's using. Yeah. But he does say he got 75% of the way through the album before he hired Dan Nakamura.
Right. So, and we actually see them doing like some like live drum track recordings too, right? That I guess just wouldn't make it into the final cut.
Yeah, it sounded like it might have been, I don't know what it was. It was like an early drum track for a song that is on there, but I can't remember what it is. But yeah, that's interesting. I would really love to know more about like Dan Nakamura's place in this and how things ended up, because you remember they took some shots at him in Ogre. And I'm very curious why,
Yeah, I would love to know how that relationship kind of resolved.
Me too. Someday, when we get one or the other on the podcast, we'll learn the truth, Trevor.
Dan, come be on the show.
Come be on the show. And then I did want to point out that every now and then Jamie Hewlett has an interesting T-shirt collection, which makes sense, right? Because he draws interesting T-shirts.
Right.
This is one of my favorites. He's wearing like a basketball jersey, but it says Epcot Center on it. Number 33.
He serves looks.
He would totally draw a shirt like that into a Gorillaz picture for sure. We get to see Jamie and Damon hike their pants up to like 2D level.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah, he's like riding the elevator up to sign a bunch of legal documents.
What was going on here? What were they stuffing into their shirts and stuff like that?
I don't know. I think the idea was that they were somewhat uncomfortable with. I think that this is footage of them incorporating Gorillaz. I think that was like them with EMI and their attorneys like creating the official Gorillaz partnership.
Right, but why the entrance?
Because I think that they're slightly out of element and uncomfortable in that element, and whenever that happens, they like to fuck around and be, impish. That's what they like to do.
Impish is a good word for Jamie Hewlett.
And certainly what their sense of humor is like together,
Yeah.
Like this happens a few times where they're like in a situation that clearly is not their favorite situation, and so they just start goofing off,
Coping mechanisms.
Coping mechanism, that's what I mean. Yeah, and they do their handshake deal with the devil. This is truly the moment when Murdoch sells the soul to the devil, is when they create the LLC.
That's a nice parallel, yeah.
And then Jamie announces that he has 2 weeks to animate the Tomorrow Comes Today video.
Right, the pressure is immediately on him.
Yeah, that's fucking insane, right? He's like, and I think Ceri is like, is that enough time? And then Jamie just laughs at him.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's not.
They do a pretty good job making 2D's mouth move, though.
I know, him and Pete Candle, and I think working alone. I don't think anybody else was at Zombie Flesh Eaters at that point.
You gotta have that proof of concept.
Just making that mouth move. But apparently while he was working on it, he already knew that Clint Eastwood was going to be the real single and was going to have like a full budget and stuff.
Right, yeah. First you got to pay your dues, though.
We get a little bit of version 1 lore here, Trevor, where Jamie says that Russell can summon living musicians too, and that Del is not a ghost, that he's alive, but since he's afraid of flying, Russell has to summon him using his power.
That is not how I took that scene.
Oh, how did you take that scene?
I thought that they were talking about how they came up with the whole ghost thing as a way to kind of parallel Del being afraid of flying and not getting there. I thought he said that he can summon any dead musician. So like he could at one point be working with like Tupac.
He said, yeah, he does say someday he could work with Tupac, but I'm pretty sure in that scene he says he can summon dead ones but also living ones. I'm pretty sure. And he says Del is alive, but since he's afraid of flying, he has to summon him. I think that's what he says.
Hey, I might be wrong.
That's our other podcast.
Yeah.
Then we move into a really amazing set piece.
Right. This is the Latin Simone recording session, right?
Yeah, Ibrahim Ferrer comes to record Latin Simone. You've got little Missy Albarn on Damon's lap. Did you catch that?
Yeah, this is a powerful scene. It is the way it is like framed and set up. It really feels like almost like the centerpiece for the first half of the movie.
Do you think that Missy Albarn in that moment when she was a baby looking at Ibrahim Ferrer is like, I'm gonna get someone cool in the studio like daily?
That is eventually what she would do, yeah.
Ibrahim, by the way, does look cool as fuck in this. He's like he's an older human man. He looks like he spent his lifetime in the sun.
He's like 73, right?
For sure. And even when he's just like sitting on the couch with Damon, like learning the material and kind of tossing off his singing, his voice just sounds amazing. Amazing.
He's wearing that shirt too with like the cherries on the back.
Yeah, so cool. So cool. And then they actually get in the booth with him and it's like up close and personal,
Yeah, and again, in terms of arcs, I really like how this scene flows. Like a little, like he records the first verse. Damon isn't really sure how to like bridge the first verse into the second one, and decides he like wants 2 tracks. And then like you see them playing back the second verse after they nail it to them, and Damon just kind of extends his arm as like Ibrahim's voice takes off, and it's like it is a real beautiful moment.
It's really cool. And Ibrahim, who's been kind of straight-faced up to that point, like starts to laugh and have fun at that moment and seems to be
it's great.
Really happy with the track. And I don't know. Yeah, this is really cool.
It's a powerful scene.
I'm so glad it's in the scene, in the movie, and it would be just as powerful if Ibrahim was still with us, but the fact that we lost him kind of makes this really, really special,
Right, and this is some of the same footage they played during the Manchester and Harlem shows, right? When they performed Latin Simone in the encore.
Yeah, I think the live visual actually has more of this session in it than the movie does.
I think it might be the whole thing.
Pretty sure that I think Ceri was in the booth with him for the whole session. I'm pretty sure.
I think that's the most compelling scene in the movie from like a musical standpoint. What follows next is my favorite from the kind of character standpoint. This is really great.
So this is Jamie Hewlett, Damon Albarn, and Remy Kabaka in a room together, and they're about to attempt the first in-character Gorillaz interview.
Right. Remy, of course, will be playing Russell. Damon will be playing 2D, and Jamie will be Murdoch.
And Jamie does like a really frightening Murdoch voice.
But like really dead on, too. Like he already has figured out who this Murdoch character is.
For sure.
Remy isn't really quite there with Russell yet, and Damon is absolutely... He wants no part in this. He thinks it's a terrible idea.
Like right from the start, you can see exactly where this is going. Like Jamie is ready to go to bat 100%. Damon is pacing back and forth. He's so nervous about what he's
Remy,
about to do.
And Russell is just sitting in the corner of the room.
And even though the attitude and the voice aren't there, Remy definitely takes a good swing. He's like, who the fuck is comparing us to a boy band? And
he's definitely on the same page. He doesn't have the voice figured out yet, but he gets the core of the project
for sure.
And I love when Damon finally cracks and decides to call the whole thing off. He goes, "Man, there's this dude Damon Albarn coming in here. He wants to take the phone."
So Remy Trevor is one of two figures who we will meet in phase 1 who are not part of the partnership, who are still involved with the project to this day. And we're going to meet the next one a little later when we start touring. But it's very cool to see Remy here and how Graham Flory is and how his role in the band has only grown over the years.
Right, from being just a voice actor to a member of the production team.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, here's how the scene plays out. Remy is doing Russell, and then Damon is nervously hovering over him, and then he grabs the phone, and then he just breaks the illusion entirely.
Right, he kind of almost starts apologizing.
Well, so this is early, but you can kind of see what we're trying to do. He's going, and then they have this little back and forth, which I wrote out, right? So Jamie says, "You totally fucking blew that. It was going fine, but you couldn't think of anything to say as 2D, so you bailed." And then Jamie goes, "Remy's fine, and I think we should get Nelson because he was really good at 2D." And then Damon goes, "And Phil Carnwell would be great." And then Jamie says, "I'm sorry, I said you blew it. You didn't."
They are married.
They're such a married couple. And
so
then David goes, "Americans like you to be nice. They want you to explain it clearly. They have a real problem with English people to start off with."
I also have this written out word for word in my notes. I spent years not explaining myself and just expecting Americans to get it, but they didn't.
But yeah, basically, that's a very cute scene because we see right off the bat that Damon, he really can have no part with the fake front of the band. He just he's not confident doing it, and
that even gets expounded on later
for sure. And it's so funny that in that moment they toss out the names of the other two people who will play the rest of the band. Like it's just like from them agreeing at the end of that tribulation that they need professional voice actors, they immediately have the two in mind, which is very funny.
That's not all they need, though. They also need somebody to tell this wily tale that they want to tell with these characters.
Oh, that's true. We do see Cass Brown,
our prodigal son, our scribe, the mouthpiece of Jehovah.
In the backdrop of meeting Cass Brown, Damon, for a second time, attempts to flip a cigarette into his mouth and fails to do so. Trevor,
he's still at it. I have a discussion question for you.
Let's hear it.
Who is a more sympathetic character in the Gorillaz story? Cass Brown or 2D?
That's a really good question because Cass Brown, he gets off some really good lines in this documentary, Trevor.
And he couldn't have had any idea what he was signing up for, right?
No. And, it's interesting because I definitely also brought the baggage of having just had to trudge through all of the Gorillaz lore into every moment Cass Brown was on screen in this, like thinking, "Oh, you poor fuck. Poor fuck. You don't know what's going to happen to you."
He's almost more Gorillaz than Jamie Hewlett. Like,
in a way, right?
It's like he definitely deserves to be that, like, a third name in Gorillaz. He has contributed so much to the project. He has suffered. he's bled for this band.
I agree, and I don't begrudge him at all for getting out for Phase 4. I don't begrudge him one second for being like, you boys have fun with that.
I'm glad he's okay. I'm glad he's okay. Is anybody taking care of Cass Brown?
Good question. Although I love this one moment. I love this moment where they're Jamie and Cass are kind of sniping about the voice actors and how they're doing, right? Because the fact remains that like there's 2 professional vocal actors and then 2 of their friends in the vocal cast.
Right.
So they're talking about Remy and they're saying, well, you know, Remy slips in and out of the accent, but that's okay because Russell's been in London for long enough that his accent's probably a little weird. And then Jamie's like, and I don't know about Nelson. I mean, 1 minute he's 2D and the next minute I don't know. And then Cass goes, he's John Inman. And then I had to go Wikipedia that. And sure enough, Trevor, it's an obscure 1960s British television personality because Cass Brown cannot turn it off. He has to reference them.
I love him. I love him.
Cass Brown. God bless you, Cass Brown.
God bless you, Cass Brown. Anyway, that's a great scene.
And also here, Trevor, we get to see Nelson DeFrida's sound check by delivering a dirty limerick.
Right, yeah, which is very Gorillaz.
It's very Gorillaz. And we see Phil Cornwell and Nelson DeFrida's recording the eel. We actually see like Ceri kind of edits the 2 shots of their sessions together, so you get to kind of like see the skit without the animation, just seeing those 2 guys do their thing, you know?
Which, to credit the animated side of the project, seeing them record this dialogue is almost as surreal for me as seeing Damon recording Punk.
It's very weird, isn't it? It's very weird.
Yeah.
And then I love that little shot of Jamie and Phil Cornwell talking about Murdoch noises.
Right? Like, talk about foreshadowing. Like, do you think they had any idea to what extent they'd eventually play this up? To how synonymous with Murdoch's character this whole noise concept would become?
Right? Because, like, there's even a moment, I don't even know exactly how to articulate this, but there's a moment where, like, Phil Cornwell does one, he goes, like, right? And then Jamie goes, right? He does the multi-step one.
It's so good.
And I almost think that maybe in that moment, like, that's when that idea came up. Like, Jamie came up with the idea of the multiple syllabic Murdoch grunt, you know? Like, that's in my head. I wonder if that's the first time that had happened.
At any rate, it's a really prophetic scene.
Oh, God. What about the amazing shot of Tom Gerling picking up the phone and saying, David, it's the police. They want you to stop playing the fucking flute.
Right, during the Rock the House. During the Rock the House recording, right?
And this kind of kicks off a running theme, Trevor, in this documentary of Damon Albarn, maybe the most annoying person on the planet, maybe the most obnoxious person who's ever lived.
This is where we get to see some of the filming of Charts of Darkness, right? And they're sitting in the scene. They're sitting in the scene that would be the psychiatrist interviewing them, and Damon is playing his banjo, and he's like, sometimes I just want to play a banjo. He's like, you couldn't have told me a week ago when we were playing this that you'd be playing a banjo? He's like, I just get in the mood to play a banjo. And it's, yeah.
He says, I told you that I'd have creative ideas on the day. Oh, I love it. I love it. I really enjoy.
I love these boys.
He's like a 12-year-old boy 90% of the time. It's very funny. Oh, how obnoxious. Can you just imagine you have like a sound crew there and they're like, oh, apparently there's a banjo in this scene.
Really interesting as well. We get a very quick shot of Jamie saying, I can smell them.
Oh, yeah. That's a thing, too. We do get that.
Who was that? Who was that, though?
I don't know. It's a good question. It almost looks like it maybe could have been Cass in like heavy makeup.
I don't know. Yeah.
That's when I wrote down they're an old gay married couple.
Who we learn now wear each other's clothes.
Yeah, they apparently when they live
they wear
together,
each other's pants.
They just wore each other's pants. Oh, it's so good. God bless Ceri Levy for giving us this window. Okay, so then we move into rehearsals for the Phase 1 gigs, Trevor.
Right.
Here's where we meet Mike Smith, still in Gorillaz, Phase 4, going strong.
On keyboards, right?
Keyboards, Mike Smith. So that means we've got Remy, we've got Mike Smith. Nobody else but Jamie and Damon have been involved in all 4 phases. You know what? Now that I think of it, there might be somebody on the video production side of things. Like I think Seb Monk might still be editing Gorillaz videos. Now that I think of it, Trevor.
Yeah, that's possible.
Seb Monk, come on the show, Seb Monk. But okay, so we got some cool stuff here. Simon Katz joins the live band to play guitar. I believe Cass is playing drums. Is that right? Cass is the live drummer phase one.
Right from the get-go, he was on the kit.
You get a little shot of the band playing Rehash in the rehearsal space, Trevor, and they sound amazing.
Is this when they talk about putting the radio hat on Miho Hattori?
Yeah, and they want to have her hold a Les Paul that's not plugged in, so she looks like Miho in silhouette. They sound just banging. Like they sound really, really good in that clip. Damon also attempts to flip a cigarette into his mouth for the third time. Guess what? He fails to succeed. He doesn't do it.
Still not there. But it was Damon who came up with the radio hat idea, right?
Is it? I don't know. Are you gathering that from this?
I think it was. I mean, Jamie wouldn't have been there at the practice, so I think this is like one of the only times Damon has ever really shown like interest in incorporating the animated characters into the performance.
I wonder if he had seen like a Jamie sketch of that and it really like stuck with him or something.
It's possible.
And was like, I want that to be. I don't know. Yeah, that's a good point though. I don't think Jamie is seen in that whole sequence there, so that probably did come from Damon.
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense for Jamie to be there.
We do see Jamie, though, kind of explaining the performance behind the screen idea and how, even then, he says, it's just because what I see in my head, like technology isn't there to do it yet, he says.
And 17 years later, it's maybe, still not.
Maybe it's coming, maybe.
Maybe. I'm still waiting for the hologram, as Damon said.
And then we get a shot of them playing a proper Phase 1 gig, and man, it looks just miserable for the crowd, Trevor. Like it looks awful. Like you get a little shot of the kind of the venue lights coming up, you know, the floor lights coming up,
right?
And everybody just kind of looks like fuck, like that. What didn't feel like a real concert I just went to.
I mean, they looked like they were getting into it though. I mean, you can see people like crowd surfing during 5/4, which is ridiculous to me.
That is very silly.
That's ridiculous.
Maybe if Jenny Beth crowd surfed while she was singing 5/4, I could see it.
Right.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
But we do get a shot of Life MC and Cy Philly dancing backstage during Phi Life Cypher Clint Eastwood.
Come be on the show, guys. Talk about those live dates you did.
Let's hear about it. I want to hear about Leeds and Paris. I think you guys did one there.
They didn't go on the U.S. tour though, right?
I don't remember, Trevor, because I didn't. Maybe wasn't one of the live 911s that they did in America.
Oh, it might be.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Damon also, right back to back, we get cigarette flip attempt number 4, and this time Ceri even chimes in from behind the camera and says, "You won't do it. You won't do it." And then he puts his arm over Remy Kabaka's shoulder so that he try to look cool while he does it, but it just bounces right off of his lips.
It's not happening.
We see Damon do a bunch of phoner interviews from Miami. And at one point he tries to make like a pop noise with his cheek, Trevor, but he just winds up just drooling all over his shirt.
Right. Classic 2D.
I think you also see him, doesn't he accidentally hang up on somebody?
Which would, that's great foreshadowing to what would inspire your favorite Gorillaz song.
My very favorite Gorillaz cut. Maybe after this one he wrote film music or something.
Possibly.
Maybe Phoner sounds like it does because he was so angry from doing phone interviews all day.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, he's always been very transparent about how much he hates doing interviews.
So then speaking of them having to do things they hate to do, Trevor, the next kind of big set piece of the film is them going to the VMAs.
Right. To quote Jamie Hewlett, "I'm in hell."
So then there's like a running thing about Justin Timberlake.
Right, Jamie has a great Justin Timberlake impression.
He goes, "My name's Timberlake and my trousers fit me fine."
So yeah, they talk about how they tried to go in the back door, but they made them walk on the red carpet, which was embarrassing because nobody knew who they were.
Nobody knows who they are.
And at one point, everybody started clapping, and they just realized they were walking behind Destiny's Child.
And this is also where Jamie decides to change his name to Jay Weasel.
Right, yeah. And they even say it during the radio interview they do.
Yeah, you see him on 106.7 FM in New York City. He goes, we got Damon here, Dan the Automator, and we got Jay Weasel.
Jay Weasel.
So good. Damon moons the camera, of course, and then they don't win a VMA.
No. And they are noticeably a little salty about it.
Yeah, they seem like that was, I didn't care about this award until I was forced to come here, and now I have nothing to show for it. You know?
And then the Gorillaz American tour begins.
No. Before the North American gigs, we have the whole 911 sessions, Trevor.
Oh, right. Yeah. My bad.
This is another really, really compelling section of the film, in my opinion. So you got D12 in the studio. As you all know, it's the day after the September 11th attack. You have Damon talking about the song on like another phone interview and saying, well, you know, it's a peaceful statement. And I'm like, did you listen to your song?
Are you sure? You sure about that?
I did love the shot of D12 member, I think it's Denon Porter, who's on the console, and he's like, tighten up that snare sound. And he's very, he's very hands-on with the mixing of the D12 beat. That's very cool. Right.
And then there's that great shot of Proof going into that very deep piece of hip-hop trivia, right? Do you remember exactly what he talks about?
I do. So he's singing boom, 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 and he's like, you know what that beat is? And then Ceri doesn't say anything. He goes, nah, you don't know what that is. And he goes, in the movie Crush Groove, before the Fat Boys sing All You Can Eat, they play that beat when they're coming out of the subway station, and then later, Del the Funky Homo Sapien sampled that beat for a song.
All right, discussion question. If you put Cass Brown and Proof from D12 in a room together, whose head do you think would explode first?
Oh, that's a great question. That's a great question. They're kind of kindred spirits, I think, because they're both clearly deeply nerds about the things that they care about.
They would just keep throwing out trivia, and their brains would have to be racing to kind of like figure out what he just said and like find when to trumpet and connect it to it. And eventually somebody's like, circuits are just going to fry.
It would be like when Mr. Robot plays chess with himself and it's just a stalemate every time.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is, again, really cool to see Proof. He just seems like so vital and fun and smart and talented. And it's just a fucking bummer that dude got killed,
Yeah.
But he seems very like in the spirit of Gorillaz in that whole section, like he's not being super reverent. He's acting like Jamie and Damon act when they're dicking around behind the scenes. You know what I mean?
Right. It's great that we have this footage of him.
And I stand by the fact that I think Proof's verse in 911 is really good. Like, especially for
it's
like,
cool to watch him perform it too. He does that cool thing with his fingers.
Yeah, exactly. And considering like it's the day after this attack, like he has a surprising amount of clarity in that verse too. Like, I don't know, man. I think that dude would have gone on to some really big, impressive things if things had gone a different way.
It feels like reactionary, but not too reactionary.
Yeah, exactly. And then you've got this shot, Trevor, of Damon explaining rap music to Terry Hall.
Right.
I wrote it down because it's kind of amazing. It's like it's one very old white man and one like on his way to being an old white man. Like, let me tell you what this rap music is about. And he goes, the whole point of rap, I presume, is to express feelings that people are having that not necessarily you're having. And they're all about that sort of thing. They're pretty kind of sort of revolting on occasion. They're on the Eminem tip with that, the psyche of the country.
How weird is it hearing Damon Albarn say they're on the Eminem tip with that?
It's very weird. It's very
really weird.
I'm assuming he's trying to explain to Terry Hall why Bizarre is talking about raping an old woman.
That is immediately what I thought of. Like, it's almost like a scene akin to the later one where the woman is asking him about the "I need a gun" line.
Do you think that Ceri cut before Terry Hall said, "Oh, well, I don't care about the lyrics to this song. Just don't call me Scarface." But he does say, like, we need to have more Arabic musicians and sounds on Gorillaz albums. That it's important. And I think to this point now we've got certainly the White Flag Arabic Symphony Orchestra. We've got the Faya Yunnan special of Busted in Blue. He's made good on that promise, I'd say. To
it's something he would always try and incorporate into his work, I think.
Yeah, I think that those don't seem to have been empty words. He seems to have stuck to that promise. Then they play the first North American gig. Now, Junior Dan does get arrested.
Is that what happened? What's the story here?
So they're kind of like intentionally vague with the edit, but based on just piecing it together from this footage plus the story of Murdoch Nichols getting arrested when they landed in Toronto to play that gig, and then having to replace him with that other bassist, which is the same name of the bassist who actually replaced Junior Dan on that gig after he got arrested. That's just what I'm kind of piecing together, is that like when they landed, maybe Junior Dan had some kind of super old warrant for possession or something like that, and they had to work around it for a gig or two, is what I assume is happening there.
Right. I was completely unfamiliar with this part of the Gorillaz story. Like, I totally forgot about this.
But then there's a really great exchange between Cass Brown and Damon where Cass goes, "We don't have a fucking bass player." And then Damon goes, "You never know, it might sound really cool."
Yeah, maybe it'll sound cool.
That's a very optimistic take.
Yeah.
And then you do get a little bit of the rehearsal, and then Damon going, "How the fuck am I supposed to sing and play at the same time?"
So I think Damon Albarn, dressed in a white windbreaker and a wool cap, vomiting into a trash can before Gorillaz go on stage, is probably the best look in this movie.
Oh man, and Ceri, to his credit, like frames it perfectly.
Yes, it's a beautiful shot.
You've got Damon on the right side of the frame vomiting into the trash can, and then on the left side of the frame, you've got people down at the end of the hall, like looking, wondering what's going on, down there. And
Damon just keeps throwing up. Like, it just keeps happening.
He clearly has a very weak tummy / does heroin, and so it's a recurring situation that he finds himself in backstage before these shows. But the edit also, Trevor, is so perfect because you jump straight from that shot of him throwing up to like him in like this sweaty fugue state performing Man Research backstage, like jumping up and down, holding his throat because I'm sure his vocal cords are totally fried, Yeah,
if there is a Damon Albarn fugue state song on the self-titled, it is definitely Man Research.
It's a very, very compelling piece of footage.
Like, I'm sure he has to just leave his body in order to get those vocals out of himself.
For sure. I wonder how many of our listeners have never seen Bananaz before, because I'm just feeling like this is so important that you guys track this thing down,
It's on YouTube, right?
Yeah, the whole thing I think is on YouTube.
Go watch it, guys.
They're not trying to keep you from it. Go find it. Damon says he doesn't want to do any more interviews, and that like the whole point of having this virtual band side of things is that he shouldn't have to anymore.
Right. This is really where we see things start to kind of beginning to splinter.
It's definitely, we've entered like a darker quadrant of the journey, for sure.
Yeah, Damon Albarn says he's more interested in the music than anything else. The rest is all fucking bollocks, so he doesn't care about. And then it cuts to Jamie, and then is that Dan with him in that interview?
Yeah, it's Jamie and Dan.
Which is a weird pair-up, right?
Yeah, and there's no Damon. He doesn't want to do interviews anymore. And Jamie kind of is like, no, Damon's not involved at all. He played the triangle on the record.
Yeah, they were like, they asked like, so how important is Damon in the Gorillaz project? And he says, Gorillaz has nothing to do with Damon. And they ask, really? Because we've been told that, his music is a large part of. And then I think Dan says, when you're a megalomaniac, you want to try and get in front of everything.
Yeah, exactly. Weird, right?
And then Jamie adds at the end of the day, all he really does is play the triangle.
Right, and then he also says he has to destroy NSYNC so that Justin Timberlake will have no choice but to join Gorillaz.
Right.
That's his. Is this also where he starts talking about lingerie in that interview?
Yeah, he asks the host where she shops for lingerie.
That seems really uncomfortable and chauvinist.
Yes, really. Well, it's because he wants to buy some lingerie.
It's because he kind of bails it out though in a funny way. So she's
not like too like creepy in a sexual way. It's still creepy in a sexual way.
And then Jamie's like, but it feels really good on your skin. And she's like, really? Well, how do you think it feels? And then he goes, silky.
Yeah. And then we cut to Damon shitting.
Yeah, that's a great moment. Damon goes, why is he watching me do this? And then Ceri goes, well, don't leave the door open then. And then Damon goes, don't fucking come and have a look at me then.
Boys. And that kind of closes the first half of the movie. That's based on phase 1, right?
Well, except you're skipping over the fact that here is where we finally see the great towering ginger Smoggy Nelson for the first time.
How could I have forgotten?
He's a very important man. He's a very important part of the Gorillaz project.
He's integral.
And the only other thing that happens before we leave phase one is Damon tries to throw a cigarette in his mouth for the 5th time and fails to. No. And at one point, an interviewer says that Gorillaz are like Pink Floyd for the new generation. And then Damon says, well, no disrespect to Pink Floyd, but we've got tunes.
Oof.
Pretty good. Yeah. What's a better, here's a discussion question. What's like a better 1970s analog for the Gorillaz of the 1970s?
I kind of want to say my first instinct is to go for Talking Heads.
That's not a bad choice. I was thinking more on the conceptual side of things, and like maybe Kiss. Maybe Gorillaz are the Kiss of the...
Oh, sure. Yeah, okay.
By all intents and purposes, though, as dickish as Damon Albarn can sometimes be, he is certainly...
No Gene Simmons.
Not a monster like Gene Simmons.
Yeah.
Then we move into phase 2, and we kind of kick it off with the full Rocket sessions, right?
Right. It's this really, really cool little framed little scene with like Damon, almost like you get the impression that this is like late at night in a studio. It's almost a very like, pardon the pun, like a guerrilla recording session. Yeah,
and it's very cool because it's sort of like, obviously Rocket was how they kicked off phase 2 in releases and to announce that Gorillaz were back, so it's just kind of fun to watch this moment happen. Also, classic Damon being intentionally obnoxious in the studio. He's got like a big megaphone over his shoulder, and he's like scat rapping into it. You know what I'm talking about here? As Jason Cox is like setting up the microphones, and then kind of rolling his eyes, and then finally David says, "It won't be too loud in my ear, will it?" And then Jason Cox says, "Yes, mate, it definitely will be." One thing that's kind of cool though, Trevor, is when you get that shot of Damon doing the actual verse vocals for Rocket, he like gets right up into the camera. He like grabs Ceri Levy's camera and like delivers his lyrics straight into it. And it almost seems like he's really using Ceri Levy's camera to like get into the vibe and the mood, the like playful fuck you attitude of that vocal performance. You know what I mean?
It works really well. And again, it's crazy just to see him recording the Rocket vocals.
There's a little shot of James Dring sitting at the console, who would take over for Tom Gerling in phase 2, Trevor. Mm-hmm. And James Dring, when Damon is delivering those verse vocals, he like, there's this look on his face where he's like, oh man, this is going to be a huge hit. He looks really excited about it. And then the second Damon starts singing the chorus, he's like, oh no, it won't be a hit. I just enjoyed that shot.
Of course, maybe arguably not the strongest part of Rocket. I'll give him that.
Maybe not. We've got Damon chatting with a dude from EMI about the new direction, which is where Damon says that he's improved a lot as a musician between the phases. Like he's learned to play his guitar properly.
Yeah.
We've got a shot of Damon holding Jamie's coffee while he rolls a joint.
Great.
And Jamie is wearing a huge scarf in that shot. I don't know if you remember. Like, it's a scarf that's bigger than Jamie Hewlett. They're greatly dressed in this movie. They sure are.
There's some outfits here.
And then we see Maceo do the Feel Good Inc. laugh, Trevor.
Right. We don't see Damon, coaching him using the example from Charts of Darkness, unfortunately.
No, Ceri didn't catch that on camera. Yeah. But this seems like, this would be like a moment if you had never seen Bananaz and were trying to imagine what kind of things would be in Bananaz. Like, I think that Maceo laugh is an obvious thing that you'd imagine would be, right?
Definitely.
It's really funny to see the whole studio kind of light up behind him when he does it, This is the one moment where Jason Cox, who's usually a frowning gargoyle of a man, has a good little chuckle watching Maceo do that big laugh.
How could you not? Just the joy that laugh brings into a room.
Did you like that little back and forth between Maceo and Jamie Hewlett? That was really funny, I thought.
What did they talk about again?
He was saying that it was easy to laugh because he found both of them funny, and he's like, especially you, he says to Jamie, and then he's like, but you're different now. You're different in the day than you are at night. And then Jamie says, that's because I'm sober in the day. And Maceo goes, are you really? And then Jamie goes, no. And you know who's not laughing? Damon Albarn during that moment.
Interesting.
I mean, it's Jamie Hewlett's alcoholism has been cited before as perhaps an instigating factor of the phase 3 fallout. So I don't know. Maybe little cracks are forming there.
And Damon would have gotten sober by this time, right?
Yeah, he was. I think at this point he probably was still smoking a bit of weed, but he was really taking it easy on the alcohol, and he was certainly not using heroin anymore. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Maybe they were parting ways in a way, philosophically.
Tension. Trouble in Paradise.
You've got a little shot of Damon and Brian Burton, a.k.a. Danger Mouse, playing ping pong.
Right. Not a lot of Danger Mouse in this movie, though.
No, there really isn't. How are you at ping pong? Are you any good at ping pong?
I'm very bad at ping pong.
I'm terrible at it. It's like one of those sports that to me feels impossible. Like
that's every sport to me.
Right. Well, I don't know. I was a football lineman, and there's like no thinking to that. That's just like
really.
Yeah, you just sort of plow into another person over and over again. You know.
Huh. I wouldn't have pictured you as a jock.
When I kill myself, I'm going to shoot myself in the heart so that they can study my brain. That was dark.
Also, it felt like apropos of nothing. But let's keep going. I gotta bring this up because there's a moment where Damon and Brian Burton are waxing philosophical about music, and then Damon goes, it starts with Ian Dury, then Sean Ryder, and after that, everything is a composite of those two things. Damon. That's the binary.
What the fuck are you talking about, Damon? What are you talking about, Damon? No. So there's Hit Me With Your Rhythm Stick and 24-Hour Party People, and everybody is just copying that? Is that what Damon suggests?
You know, those are the musical chromosomes.
Yeah, I don't know about that, Trevor. I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah. Maybe wouldn't be my first two picks.
We do see Rosie Wilson learning the vocal part for Dare. That's really cool.
Right, and we see Damon get into a recording booth but can't remember the lyrics he's going to sing.
Oh, yeah, the whole El Mañana situation, right?
Yeah.
Really quickly, though, is it just me or does Rosie Wilson have one of those faces where you're like, oh, she seems like she'd be so friendly?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, she looks like a kind person.
Right. She looks like somebody you'd go to and ask for help if you just got mugged or something, you know?
Yeah, someone who would be there for you.
Exactly. But then, yeah, we got to talk about this whole Mañana situation because it's really something, Trevor. So the whole live crew, the whole live instrumentation crew for Demon Days is in the studio and they're ready to track El Mañana. And Damon was like, okay, are we going to do just the first verse? And then he's like, no, we're setting up to do a full take. And then he goes, okay. Because I don't have the lyrics for that. It just cuts to the band alone, and then Cass peeks his head out of the drumming booth. He peeks his head out of the booth and says, what are we doing? And then Mike Smith goes, we're about to do a take. And then Cass says, shouldn't there be someone singing? And Mike says, yes, but he doesn't have the lyrics. And then they just start playing, right?
And then Damon walks into the room and yells the line from the chorus, right?
Yeah, holding a clipboard, like, look, I did my homework.
You think he wrote the lyrics for El Mañana in that moment?
I think he did. I think in the time it took for the band to start this song up and get to the first or second chorus, Damon furiously wrote the lyrics to El Mañana. I believe that's what we're witnessing.
I initially took that scene as him just not having the lyrics on him and not remembering what the lyrics are.
I think that Damon sees lyric writing as homework, right?
That would be great if he just went off, ducked in somewhere, and wrote El Mañana. Oh, that's a great little headcanon. I absolutely believe that.
That's what I think happened. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah.
Then we get the Fire Coming Out session.
Right, we got a lot of Dennis Hopper stuff.
We start with a discussion about castraphony.
Right, this word that Damon says he intended to make up.
Now,
but I don't know if I buy that.
We got to ask again, do you buy Damon Albarn's steadfast defense of castraphony as being an intentional Damon Albarnism?
I don't. I really don't. I think he was, what do you think he was going for? Cacophony?
Cacophony, and it got tangled up with catastrophe in his head.
Yeah. No, I think this was him just kind of, I think he was kind of pulling this out of his ass.
Yeah, it's like when you bail off a skateboard and you're like, I meant to do that, you know?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But I do like how incensed he gets about it. Like Jamie is like, I think you should keep it. It's funny that you messed that word up. And he's like, no, I meant to make that word up. He looks very defensive.
How dare you? How dare you, Jamie Hewlett?
Then Dennis Hopper shows up.
Right, and he starts reading Damon's story.
Oh my gosh, we get a little bit of his first take, and it is really bad. His first take, he's just like, castraphony, so immense, far away in space.
Why was it bringing darkness into their lives?
So funny. But he does settle into it, and then he kind of gives me a vibe. Did you get this vibe where he seems like a cool professor who might smoke weed with you?
Sure, yeah, totally. That checks out with Dennis Hopper.
Right? He's sort of like, he doesn't look frail here. Later we'll see him again, Trevor, before the Apollo gigs, and he looks less healthy to me.
Right.
In that footage. But it's really funny to watch like Damon listen to him tracking the story. He seems like really excited, you know?
I mean, if you wrote a short story and had Dennis Hopper reading it, wouldn't you be?
Definitely. But it's very cool. Once again, just like with Ibrahim Ferrer and Proof, we get right in the booth with him. It's very interesting that like Proof, Ibrahim Ferrer, Dennis Hopper, all three collaborators who would later die. Although Dennis Hopper would die after this movie came out, Trevor. This movie came out in 2008. Dennis Hopper died in 2010. But isn't it interesting that the three like big in-studio moments with collaborators are three dead Gorillaz collaborators?
That is really interesting, yeah. I mean, the Gorillaz project has really become kind of a curse, hasn't it, as it's been going on, claiming the lives of those three, Lou Reed.
Yeah, and I guess part of that is just because you've got an early Gen Xer who's interested in booking his idols on his records, you know? Mm-hmm. So he's bringing in these boomers, and some of them are lived pretty rough lives and are not necessarily at the beginning of their journey when he finds them.
Yeah, I mean, Ike Turner's another one. We get some cool Ike Turner stuff with the Apollo show later.
Yeah, we do see a little bit of Ike Turner later. But for now, let's see. What do we got? We've got, they rap Demon Days. Damon kind of does like a cute high English thing where he's like, well, it's been lovely knowing all of you. Best of luck and goodbye. It's very cute. Then this is another centerpiece, in my opinion, Trevor. We've got Jamie working on the Dirty Harry single art while he complains about the enemy.
Right. Did you look up this interview he references?
Yeah, I found it. Did you look it up?
I did. I found it on, of course, Gorillaz Unofficial.
Yes, of course. That's where I found it too. They reprinted it there. I think that the moment he must be really angry about was the moment about making fun of the fact that her name's Noodle and she's from Japan and she does kung fu or whatever.
I mean, they've got a little bit of a point, right? They ask, do you perhaps have a French friend called Fromage who likes eating snails?
Yeah, so here's the thing. Here's the thing about that, Trevor. I agree that they have a point, but judging from Jamie's telling, they rewrote that answer after the fact to make them look more clever than
it does.
Than
yeah,
Cass.
that's what he makes it sound like.
So
do you what about some other questions in this interview? Like the Ike Turner one really jumped out at me too.
Oh, I don't remember. I kind of perused it, but bring me into it. What do they say?
I say, we met your collaborator, Ike Turner, once, and we couldn't help thinking, okay, he is cool, but did he really have to beat the shit out of his wife like that? Did a similar thought ever occur to you? Like, what the fuck are you bringing that up in an interview for? Like, is this supposed to be like some like Gorillaz sting piece?
Well, yeah, here's what Jamie says. He goes, they asked the most venomous questions, and then Cass wrote really funny answers as Noodle, but they've rewritten those and their questions to make themselves look like smartasses, which they're not. And then every time he says the C word, they bleep it out with the honks from Highway Under Construction.
That's a nice touch. No, from Happy Landfill.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, from Happy Landfill. That's so funny. It's really funny.
Another good question is, have you ever thought, fuck me, I wish we hadn't bothered with all this, let's hide our true identities behind cartoon characters paper.
And then Jamie says that he doesn't want to do a cover for them for the Dirty Harry single. I think they still did. I think he was just blowing off some steam in the moment. But he literally blows off some steam when he draws an ejaculating penis onto the Dirty Harry cover art while making fart noises with his mouth.
To be fair, they were asking questions like, now, there's a good amount of fairly pricey Gorillaz merchandise about. Was the bulging wallet of the saddle-sniffing fanboy obsessive a spur in forming a cartoon band with a Japanese chick in it in the first place?
Okay, I'll say right now, somebody please copy edit these questions. They're way overwritten. They're way overwritten.
Noodle answers, Gorillaz have never released anything musically, visually, or in any other medium that has been anything less than superlative.
Yeah, good for Cass Brown for going to bat, but that is a stupidly overwritten question.
Yeah, the last one's good too. Thank you, Noodle. It's been great fun, and your band's great. To which Cass replies, you should smile when you say that, or are you afraid that your face will crack?
That is good. I wonder, I would love to see Cass Brown's draft of that interview, though.
God, come on the show, Cass.
Come on the show, Cass, for sure. We love you, buddy. You got to get on the show. We got to talk to you.
You're our boy.
We've got a Damon interview about Dirty Harry being on Demo Crazy while Jamie storyboards Dirty Harry, the video.
And listening to the clip of I Need a Gun here, it does sound more than ever like I need a gun to keep myself among.
Yeah, I think in that version it for sure is, but we'll get into the debate. We'll get into the debate, Trevor. Then we move to the Dirty Harry shoot. This was really cool, the Dirty Harry shoot stuff, Trevor.
Yeah, with Booty Brown.
The reason that this is compelling is that Jamie is kind of so in his element. He's like giving direction. He's really running the show. Like, especially coming straight off of him kind of like drawing a penis and making fart noise angrily. It's like interesting to see him really get down to business, you know?
Yeah, and I feel like this is one of the few times in the movie we actually get to see it.
Also, that very funny shot of Booty Brown failing to rise out of the sand pit is very funny, where he's like...
Apparently they had to do it like 30 times or something.
I know. And then, like, Jamie's like, all right, you're done. Good job. You did it. And then Booty Brown almost looks like, almost annoyed. And he's just like, yeah, thanks. But yeah, it's just cool. It's just really cool to see Jamie, like, coming up with shot ideas on the day and...
Yeah, he was talking about how like he wanted Booty Brown to be like up here on the truck and then over here on the hill, so it would almost be like he's teleporting around like a phantom.
Very cool. And then you get the little shot of that happening in the video. It's very cool.
Right, yeah.
And then you get a cool quote from Damon saying, we're trying to create something that has no references to rock music whatsoever.
Did anybody tell Cass Brown?
I don't know. It's a good question.
Doesn't sound like they did.
Okay, the next big centerpiece is that we move into the Manchester residency.
Yeah, we start seeing the Demon Days live performances coming together.
I love how we introduced that whole section with the shot of like Damon talking to the festival organizers, like talking about the space and being nervous about the seats working, and then in the background you just see Jamie Hewlett with this giant prop boner that he's holding over his crotch and like thrusting it, looking into the camera, making faces while David's like, yeah, I don't know, because I'm looking at this side of the stage and I'm just worried that people aren't going to be able to see if Oh, I love them. I love our boys. They're so good.
Yeah, Jamie Hewlett is definitely the hidden secret weapon of the entire Gorillaz project.
I totally agree. But then, again, he gets right down to business. You see Jamie sketching out how the actual performance is going to work. He's got his easel in front of him, right? And a bunch of organizers and producers around him. He says, okay, here's how it's going to work. He's sketching really fast and furious, right? And we get to see him have the idea of putting Damon into the back of the stage in silhouette, you know? Mm-hmm. And say like, you'll be like the smallest silhouette and all the collaborators will be up front. You'll be able to see them. And then it's his idea, but then Damon goes, I'm happy with that. I really like that. So it's very cool. It's very cool to watch that moment happen, you know?
Yeah, nice moment of unity between the two halves of Gorillaz.
And then I suppose rest in peace to asshole Ike Turner, who we do see very briefly give Damon a hug, and then they're both kind of leant over the same piano, practicing Every Planet We Reach Is Dead for a moment.
That's a really cool scene, yeah.
It is cool to see him doing that. And then Damon throws up.
Again.
I guess kicking heroin didn't help that tummy that much, huh?
It's just pre-show jitters.
Then we see Rosie very gamely singing and dancing with human monster Sean Ryder. What is going on with Sean Ryder's skin? Like it looks terrifying. He looks.
I think all this time later we still haven't figured out anything that was going on with Sean Ryder at this point.
It's a good question. It almost looks like maybe like somebody ironed out a Jason Voorhees mask. And that's his face.
Sean, come be on the show.
For sure, Sean. Come on that show for sure. I hear you're sober. Congratulations.
Way to go.
Paz Denise tells a funny story about getting off stage from doing Feel Good Inc. and somebody handing him a towel. He's like, I was just on stage for 2 minutes. I'm used to doing 2 hours. I don't need a towel. And Damon capped the whole event off by saying that it was another wow in a series of wows.
Great way to put it. The man's a poet.
Oh gosh, was there anything? I don't have too many notes about the MTV Europe Music Awards. I just have that they're there.
Yeah, I didn't dig anything out of this scene.
Oh, I wonder, is this where Jamie says that a PA held up 3 fingers to him, and he thought it might mean that the PA wanted to like finger him or something?
I missed that, but I mean, it's possible.
I think he's like, that's how many fingers are going to be shoved up my ass. I think that's what he says. You see Damon giving a hard time to a radio interview that he's doing over the phone, where he's like, How else would I get to America from England without it being a long flight, unless you've invented a new form of transportation?
Which is like, why is he being such a dick?
Because he hates doing interviews.
I know, but it's your job, dude. Come on. Like, do you think the radio DJ is super into it?
I'm sure, right?
Like, oh my God, I got to call this dude from this fucking cartoon band today who was in this British band that nobody really remembers over here.
And then they always make fun of if radio interviews are very interesting. If a celebrity gives them shit, they act like really friendly with them on the air, and then they hang up and then talk about what a dick they were, and then always talk about what a dick they are whenever they come up again. But then we've got the true, actual centerpiece of this film, Trevor.
What was that again?
The Damon Albarn versus Dirty Harry choir director.
Oh, yes. This is the climax. This is where everything comes to a head.
This is so good. Everything about this sequence is good, man.
There's so much tension built into it, and there's suspense.
Well, and it's the moment when you see the hypothetical inner city blackness of Damon Albarn's writing come face to face with actual inner city blackness and have to defend himself. You know what I mean?
Right. He's all of a sudden in this environment that he's like been writing about, and there's like a figure from it asking like, hey,
what are you doing?
What are you doing here?
Exactly. It's so interesting.
It's really
so
great.
Interesting. Okay, so I tried to watch it this time, Trevor, believing that the lyric is among. Because I always...
Me too, actually, yeah.
I always took it as Damon was like trying to weasel his way out of it, but I decided that the debate would be interesting to watch, believing that he was telling the truth, that somehow the lyric sheet given to the kids... Okay, let's start from what's going on.
Let's talk about what happens, yeah.
So you've got this lady here, she says she's from a congregation, and so is the children's choir. So like basically, this lady from a church in New Jersey has brought her children's choir from her church to come sing at the Apollo show. She saw the lyric sheet in which it says, I need a gun to keep myself from harm. And she's like, this is concerning to me and shocking to me that you've got like young African-American males singing this stuff.
Right.
And then Damon, very much caught off balance, tries to explain what he's doing.
Yeah, he tries to explain the whole like Demon Days concept to her almost.
And there's two edits in this scene. So it's cut down from a much larger sequence, and we kind of see the arc happen. We don't see the full thing. It starts off with him steadfastly defending the lyric by saying that it's not from harm, it's to keep myself among the poor people who are burning in the sun. Okay? Can we unpack why that changes it? Does that change it?
You mean the change from among to from harm?
Or vice versa. Like, why is one better than the other or less offensive than the other?
I feel like it really isn't.
Right? Like, I guess...
Like, what is the real difference
Well,
there?
I guess...
I wouldn't be able to tell you.
I guess to keep myself among is like... It almost feels... I don't know, because they're both like very paranoid
It's implying
lyrics.
The other one, if nothing else.
Yes, they're both...
It's keeping it a little more vague.
Right. So to keep myself from harm feels like I have the intention to use this thing because somebody's out to get me. And to keep myself among is like I don't want to die. So maybe one's a little bit more passive and one's a little bit more active. Maybe?
I would say, yeah, among might be a little more passive.
A little bit, but it doesn't seem to be a make or break. Then there's this really awkward moment where for some reason Damon doesn't want to say black or African American. So he's like, well, you know, we've done it in England with kids of similar ethnic backgrounds, and it was recorded in Atlanta with purely and then she's like, African Americans, and he's like, exactly.
Oh my God.
Why don't you just say it? Say black kids, Damon. So then here's the craziest bit. So Damon now tries to explain what it means, okay? And I wrote it out word for word, and let's see if it makes any sense, okay?
Sure, yeah. Let me hear it.
He goes, it's a sort of rhetorical thing. It's an anti-war. If you look at Booty Brown's lyrics, it's utterly and totally anti that. It's pacifist. The whole record is a pacifist record. The gun is I suppose I see the gun as and I use it throughout the record as sort of, it's such a negative image that it has to be somehow sort of destroyed and turn into something else. Do you know what I mean? That's all I'm trying to do, and I'm being very upfront. Yes, using a kids' choir on the record, it's very sort of, yeah, you're the first people to bring this up, actually. And the other director,
which I truly believe.
I clearly, because he's never had to talk about it before. Clearly,
yeah, that's quite obvious.
He has a hard time articulating what he was trying to do with that, and I think what he was trying to do with it was reference inner city black violence in a way that was shocking and provocative, and maybe for better and for worse. Maybe this lady has a point that it's problematic for him to be doing this, But then there's this one point where he's like, the director goes, I guess what I hear you saying is that it's about the dichotomy between dark and light. And then Damon goes, exactly. The album is called Demon Days. And she goes, I don't know what that means.
There's so much great stuff going on in this scene too. At one point, they try and get the lyric sheet to prove her wrong, but it does say from harm, or no, she brings the lyric sheet in with her, right?
So see, it says here from harm, and then he goes, "What? Why?" And then he's talking to the choir director. Why does it say this? It's not supposed to say this.
Who put? And they're like, "No, these aren't his words."
Yeah. And then it does end with a hug. They do resolve it by the end of it. They give each other.
Yeah, Damon gets by the fucking skin of his teeth.
Boy, you could see the flop sweat on his head though. Yeah. It was rough. It was a rough moment for him. And then we move out of it just with a brief shot of Jamie Hewlett waking up in the backseat of a car and going, "Where's Damon?" Almost like he sensed that his friend was in trouble.
Or that this was a dream he had, immediately foreshadowing events that were about to come.
For sure. It's a really good piece of editing. Then we see Dennis Hopper, who's very stressed out about performing Fire Coming Out live at the Apollo. Was he at your performance, Trevor?
No, I think he only showed up at the last one.
Yeah, that's what I remembered happening too. He does not look well in this shot to me.
How soon after this would he pass?
He didn't die until 2010, but I guess he had a pretty long battle with cancer from what I remember. It would not surprise me if he was in the middle of a round of treatment or something at this point.
Yeah, I mean that might have all been the case.
From what I read of the live review that I was able to track down of him at the Apollo, everybody said that he got a huge round of applause and it was really fun to watch him do it live. Then Smoggy Nelson takes a huge smelly shit backstage. You remember? Do you remember this part?
I do. There's a lot of toilet humor in the movie.
Mike Smith yells, "Fucking 12 pounds of ginger turds." And then Damon goes, "If I'm sick, then it ruins my vocal cords." And then right after that, Damon farts and giggles and runs out of the room. And then everybody starts moaning and he's like, "I didn't make that smell. He did when he took that shit in there." Trevor, this is the artistic process.
These boys.
Just so gross and so great. I did get really emotional because there's a little edit piece of scenes from the Apollo live performances that's cut to the gospel choir singing the end of Demon Days.
Right, playing over the climax of Demon Days. Yeah, it's a fitting. This is kind of almost the not the climax of this is kind of the climax of the film, and it's a nice moment to kind of carry us through to the end. Yeah,
it's an emotional climax, and then just as I was sort of mopping the tears from my eyes, Damon Albarn puts a cigarette between his index finger and his thumb, Trevor, with the eye of the tiger, with the focus of a Cro-Magnon looking to hunt down a wild boar. He flips that cigarette and it lands perfectly between his lips.
It's great, and they even put a little red arrow next to him right before he does it, so that
you're watching.
Yeah, so that you're watching him, and he finally does it. Yeah, he accomplishes this thing he's been practicing for 5 years.
The last line of the movie is that Jamie looks over and sees Damon dancing in celebration, and Jamie says, "What?" And then Damon goes, "Nothing. Something I've been working on for the last 6 years." And then Jamie says, "Smoking?"
Wonderful. And yeah, he does it in the split second that Jamie looks away. Yeah, it's great.
But it doesn't matter because the camera caught it.
Yep. Really beautiful moment and a great kind of bookend to the movie.
I love this movie, Trevor. I would watch it again right now. I love this movie.
Yeah, it's really great. It's just entertaining the entire way through. Can I actually bring up, I know we weren't going to get into the bonus content though.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Bring something up.
Yeah, I want to bring up one more thing about the bonus content. The minute and a half extra about the sneeze.
Oh, yeah.
Did you watch this one?
I not recently, but I know what you're referring to.
Right. It takes place during the recording of the filming of the 2000 video.
Yes.
And it's basically just like a minute of Jamie getting kind of pissed that Damon wants to be the one to record the elk sneeze that, sets the rockets off course.
Right.
And they have to wait for him to get back from abroad to do it. So it's going to push the entire production of the 2000 video back an entire day. Just because Damon wants to be the one to do the sneeze.
Yeah, because the young prince demands it.
Yeah, this really recontextualizes the 2000 video for me as almost being about the kind of rift between the animated side of the project and the musical one, like the Damon side and the Jamie one. Because if this is true, that means the elk is Damon, and I think Gorillaz are Jamie.
Right, and in the book, don't they make some kind of weird metaphor about it being impositions on the creative process or something like that?
Something like that. So yeah, the 2000 video just kind of climaxes with Jamie making this aggressive attempt on Damon, for lack of better words, and Damon not even noticing and just totally blowing it off to Jamie getting blown up.
So then I guess that makes 2000 the second most passive aggressive Gorillaz video after Do You Think?
Pretty much, yeah.
But that's it. That's our time with the boys. You know what? This made
Bananaz.
me think. Even though I groaned earlier about the prospect of a Rise of the Ogre 2, I would so kill for a Bananaz 2 showing us.
Absolutely, yeah.
Showing us all that stuff. Trevor, I guess we're wrapping up here, but we got some news to tell our.
Yeah, we got some stuff to tease for next week, right?
I'm very excited about it because we're not quite done with Bananaz yet, I suppose.
No, yeah, this is. I think last week was the season 3 finale. I think these next 2 episodes we're going to be doing, this one included, are kind of a mid-season kind of special in the Hallelujah Monkeys canon.
Exactly,
the 2-parter end of the summer special. Because next week we've got some cool stuff to do.
So in theory, next week we're going to be reviewing the Super Deluxe of Humans.
Right, that will be the news for the week because those tracks are going to be dropping. We're going to finally have our hands on them. We're going to want to cover them as soon as possible. Delivery
issues notwithstanding. Obviously, if they don't show up on people's doors, then we won't.
Then we're fucked.
But we'll see. Hopefully, theoretically, there's that. But then we've got part 2 of our Bananaz episode. Trevor, why don't you tell the folks at home what they got in store?
Right. Yeah, we've been really excited to announce this. But next week we'll be doing a part 2 of Bananaz with Ceri Levy,
the director of Bananaz.
The director of Bananaz.
It was an intense and amazing process, and I can't wait for you guys to hear it. It
is definitely the most exciting thing I've done for this podcast, and maybe in my entire history as a Gorillaz fan.
And one step closer to the inner circle.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Damon. I initially mispronounced them, but I decided to just roll with it.
Yeah. For sure, because their love affair, it's real. And I'm so glad that they're back together and that they're friends again. Oh, I'm so excited, and I'm so excited for you guys to hear that interview next week. I want to wrap things up as I usually do by letting you guys know that you can get in touch with us on Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, YouTube, Instagram, even a weird app called Amino that I haven't opened in a month. You can send us an email at hallelujahmonkeys@gmail.com. You can write us a review on iTunes. That always helps us. Or join our Discord server at discord.me/monkeys with a Z, and support the show with a monthly donation on Patreon. Why don't you? And thank you again to those listeners who have already done so.
Yes, thank you. And until next week, I'm Trevor Ickrath.
I'm Dillon Flynn.
And remember, boys and girls,
Satan loves you!